Growing up, I never saw my mom and dad using credit cards. They didn't even have debit cards because they were always using cash only in our house. But once I turned 18, I got my first credit card, and that's when I just started making a whole bunch of hot mess financial mistakes. And I realized later that these are actually common mistakes because we never really learn how all of this stuff works. I gotta give a big thank you to Unidos US, the largest Latino civil rights organization in the United States, for partnering with me right here on my platform to drop all the wisdom that I've learned from making all the financial mistakes I've made with credit cards in my teens and in my 20s. Actually, I do tell a lot of these mistakes and share some embarrassing stories too in my new book, Mind Your Money. So you should definitely grab a copy if you don't already have one. I'm a first-time author, I'm a first-generation Latina, and I'm just trying to pay it forward to the next generation by sharing all of the financial lessons that I wish I had learned earlier in my life. Okay, so let's get into it. The first mistake that I made when it comes to credit was making credit and money in general a taboo. And I think a lot of people do this because we let money control us in a bad way. Like we don't talk about it, and we feel like there's shame and embarrassment. Especially in Latino cultures, we have this mindset that we don't air out our dirty laundry. La ropa sucia se lava en la casa. That literally translates to your dirty laundry gets washed in your home, right? So I think these are the types of cultural narratives that just like make us like perpetuate shame and guilt and embarrassment when it comes to talking openly about money. If somebody is struggling financially, they're probably not going to want to tell their family because they're embarrassed and ashamed, which just means that they're not going to get the support and the guidance that they need. So, not talking about money, it's just going to mean like not a lot of long-term financial planning is happening. Family members are never going to know what other people are going through in the family, and they're just going to assume everybody's on the same page, assuming that we can all take the same vacation or that we're all comfortable spending the same amount when it comes to like weddings and quinceañeras. So, these are the things to consider. Now, this is a little bit more serious, but it does happen a lot, and it happened to me, a death in the family. Like when my abuelo died, we didn't really know what was going to happen. Like we didn't know how much the funeral was going to cost, where he wanted to get buried. Like we didn't have these conversations beforehand. And so we didn't really have, time to prepare and plan. But how incredible would it be if we all had the opportunity to actually grieve our people and not be stressed out financially and trying to, figure things out financially while also trying to deal with the loss of that person in our family. So that's kind of what I use as a motivation now to just openly talk more about money with my family members. The second mistake that I think I made, and a lot of us make, is not understanding how the credit system works, or how I like to call it, the credit syllabus. A lot of Latinos, we never really get the opportunity to understand how credit works, but we still go and we apply for loans and credit cards anyway. This, for me, this is also like a little bud that's like kind of growing out of the seed from the first example or mistake, because you're never going to learn if you don't ask questions, if you don't talk openly about money. So keeping that in mind, generally it leads us to more confusion and make more mistakes when we don't talk openly about money, and especially when it comes to credit. So it's important to talk to people who have had credit and who've managed it responsibly and learn how they did it. Ask them, what are the mistakes that you made, so that we can learn from those mistakes and not repeat those mistakes again in another, from one generation to the next. But at the same time, we can't only rely on others. It's really important that we do our own research. Like we need to learn how the credit system works. What are the factors of credit? How are they incorporated into your credit score, and how does it impact your credit score? So we need to be, reading blogs, reading books, and doing our own research. I travel a lot, like all around the country, and I speak to a lot of youth, especially in communities of color and in colleges and high schools. And one of the big things I've heard the students complain to me about is that the parents open credit cards in their child's name and then max it out. Now, I would say this is a big mistake because, first of all, using a lot of your credit right away can impact your credit score negatively. So I always tell people, first of all, you should only be using 10% of any credit card's credit limit available on that card. So maxing out a card is already going to hurt your score so much. But I know that a lot of parents out there, maybe they max out their credit card and then, washer or dryer breaks or something, and then they don't know where to go. So they look, let me go ahead and open a credit card in my child's name so that I can, have access to this credit, because maybe they won't be considered for credit or they don't have the access to credit. So that's one thing. But we have to understand there's a difference between opening a credit card in someone else's name, like opening a credit card for your child in their name, and then adding them as an authorized user on a credit card that you already have. It's a big difference. So you should never open a credit card in someone else's name unless you're adding them as an authorized user, because legally you can't do this. You legally, it is not allowed for you to apply and pretend that you're someone else when you open a card. So we got to be really careful about these situations and do these things the right way. Now, at the same time, I always try to come at the parents with empathy because I don't know what financial situation they were in that they felt like they had to make that choice. Because, of course, they might have not had access to credit, like I said, or they might have been in a very tight situation financially and they just wanted to do what was best for their children and their family. But at the same time, think about turning 18 and just finding out all of a sudden that there's a credit card out there that you didn't know you had open in your name with an outstanding balance owed and it's hurting your credit score. Now you can't get the best rates on a car loan that you want. You cannot qualify for an apartment because your credit score is bad, and it could even affect you getting hired to work at a job in the business or finance sector. So we really have to make sure that we avoid this type of mistake at all costs. Back when I was in college, I applied for 4 different credit cards. That was like one for every year that I was there. And I know that a lot of people are worse, like they apply for a lot of credit cards at the same time. And I would say that's mistake number 4 because this actually lowers your credit score in the short term immediately. If you're applying for a lot of accounts all at once, it can have a negative impact on your score. And that's why it's really important to only apply for credit when you really need it. So, spreading out your applications over time. And a lot of experts say spread them out by 6 months or so, because that way you don't have more than 2 new credit applications for every 1 year. Finally, the 5th mistake I would say is not checking your credit report at all. It is so important that you check your credit report at least once each year because you got to be looking out for errors or fraud or scams and unfamiliar information on your account. It's going to help you to just, see if there's any issues there that you might have to report. And if you do see something, then call up the credit reporting agencies and let them know that you see something incorrect so that they can address it. If you want to check your credit report for free, just go to annualcreditreport.com. All right, let me know in the comments below what you think about the mistakes that I've shared and what are some other mistakes that we know people in our families and communities make that hurts their credit. To learn more about the incredible work and mission of Unidos US, head on over to unidosus.org or just click the link in the description box below. I'm personally very inspired by the financial empowerment and education work they're doing and the workforce development that they provide to the Latino community because there's over 62 million Latinos working and living in America, and we contribute about 2.7 trillion with a T, trillion dollars to this economy. So we need to advocate for more resources, education, and especially when it comes to navigating the financial system. So share this video with somebody that you know could use these gems. And don't forget, subscribe, comment with any questions, and grab a copy of my new book, Mind Your Money. Peace.